In The Ripple Effect of Resiliency, Monique Gray Smith says, human resiliency is like a willow tree branch, able to stretch, bend, and then come back to almost the exact shape, but changed. When we experience life events that require us to be resilient, who we become is also changed. Welcome to Strength-Based and Deficit-Based Approaches to Practice. This lesson begins week 2 of voluntary services. As with all of the modules within the Aboriginal Social Worker Program, the concepts covered here are designed to assist and inform you of best practices in social work with Aboriginal children and families. You will continue to explore issues and aspects of social work practice and learn to create effective and respectful approaches to social work with diverse Aboriginal populations. Let's take a moment to listen to an excerpt from A Personal Story of Resiliency. This is a short audio clip, and it does contain some graphic content.
Still feeling like I didn't quite belong in this world, I started to experiment with drugs and alcohol. And I started to look for relationships where I felt that sense of belonging. And it always seemed that the group of people that accepted me the most were involved in some risky behavior. So I ended up hanging out with a group of people that accepted me, and I felt like I belonged to that particular group of people, but they weren't necessarily that good for my well-being. So at the age of 14, I was raped by my best friend's boyfriend. And pretty much from that time on, my behavior became riskier and riskier, and I fell into a world of drugs and alcohol.
Let's take a breath and keep in mind that there will be many, many stories of resilience that you will encounter as you enter into social work practice. By the completion of this lesson, you will be able to identify the differences between strength-based approaches and deficit-based approaches to practice, and you will be able to describe a strength-based approach to social work practice. The activities for this lesson are detailed on the course website. They include watching this video, 2 readings, listening to the full audio clip of A Personal Story of Resiliency, and you are also required to make a number of posts and journal entries, as well as respond to the posts of others. The final activity for this lesson is to complete the quiz that is also on the website. When thinking about the quality of the individual's resilience within the Aboriginal context, one must take into consideration the strengths of culture, language, spirituality, family, and extended family as important elements of this individual's environment. Let's review some definitions of strength-based and deficit-based approaches to practice. Strength-based approaches have a tendency to put stress on the multiple interactive levels of influence, have a more holistic approach. Clients are often seen as being participatory in a collaborative and health-seeking effort. The strength-based approaches perceive families as potential resources and seek to find strengths in a client's upbringing history. We will touch on just a few definitions in this video. You will need to access the glossary and reference document on the website to complete this lesson. So, a definition of a relational worldview in a strength-based approach is also sometimes called the cyclical worldview. It finds its roots in tribal cultures. It is intuitive, non-time oriented, and fluid. The balance and harmony in relationships between multiple variables, including spiritual forces, make up the core of these thought systems. Every event is understood in relation to all other events, regardless of time, space, or physical existence. Health exists only when things are in balance and harmony. In the relational worldview, helpers and healers are taught to understand problems through the balances and imbalances in the person's relational world. In strength-based approaches, subjective can be defined as being based on personal feelings or interpretation. It is not objective. It is individual and internal, and having to do with one's own experience and interpretation of that experience. Wellness. The focus for Aboriginal people has always been within the 4 aspects of a person's life: emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Wellness means living in balance and harmony with all beings, and it is a constant journey of balancing and taking charge of your own life to create harmony. Now let's look at some deficit-based approaches. These approaches have a tendency to look to the individual as the cause. They can be problem-focused. Clients can often be seen as being resistant or being in denial. They have a one-size-fits-all approach. And they also identify pathologies that exist from a person's upbringing. So a compartmentalized worldview in a deficit-based approach is based on a more linear model of thinking that is steeped in the history of science and scientific reasoning. It rests on the firm belief about human objectivity in the pursuit of knowledge and truth. This worldview does have spiritual and symbolic attributes. However, these are often separate from the scientific forms of knowledge. And a result of this worldview is its manifestation in thinking in terms of concepts like one true God, one true answer, or one right way. In human services, workers are usually taught that if we can understand the causes of a problem by taking a social history, then we will know better of how to help. And interventions tend to be targeted at the cause or the symptom. The definition of pathology in looking for problems is considered to be the study of the essential nature of diseases, and especially of the structural and functional changes produced by them. Labels in psychiatric classifications are behavior that's defined as a disease or a disorder that displays specific symptoms determined by specific psychiatric diagnosis, and often treated with medication or therapeutic processes. So to summarize, we have looked at some of the differences that encompass strength-based approaches and deficit-based approaches in Aboriginal social work. Some of these definitions may have been different from the ones that you had at the beginning of this module. These are important concepts to keep in mind as we continue to explore the context of resilience with Aboriginal and children and families. Strength-based approaches center around discovering the existing strengths that an individual already has that can assist them in dealing with their current issues. Complete the activities posted on the course website. You can use your student journal as a place to reflect on how strength-based approaches can impact on your social work practice. Reading the comments that are posted by others in the group can also help inform your practice. In the next lesson, we will look at risk factors, protective factors, and coping strategies. You will continue to explore issues and aspects of social work best practices to create effective and respectful approaches to social work in Aboriginal communities. Thank you for listening.